everybody, and welcome to my annual coverage of the Kono Light Novel ga Sugoi magazine. This one is a yearly publication where it involves votes from fans and sort of industry insiders and then tabulates them all together to come up with multiple top 10 lists. I'm going to be focusing on 3 of those lists over 3 separate videos. The first one is the top 10 Bunko list. The second one will be the top 10 Tankobon list, and then the final will be the top 10 of the decade. I'll go into a little bit more detail in each of those separate videos about what the lists are each about and what the nature of them are. In terms of importance, Kono Light Novel ga Sugoi began publication back in November of 2004, and at least according to one expert who wrote an article about light novels in the Routledge Guide to Modern Japanese Literature, it wasn't until Kono Light Novel ga Sugoi became a thing that light novels actually became a common publishing term. That up until that point, they had pretty much been just called teen literature or early adult literature. They weren't really like light novels were a terminology that was reserved for the fan base. It hadn't really made it into the mainstream. It hadn't made it into the marketing and into the sort of publishing jargon of Japanese publishers. So really, Kono Light Novel ga Sugoi has brought the term light novel into sort of its modern state that we associate it now. So pretty important. We also can take a look at the history of this publication. It first came out back in 2004, and pretty much if you follow the top 10 lists that it's put out over the years, you're going to see a lot of trends. A lot of the light novels that are featured in it got anime adaptations. A lot of the light novels featured in it, if they didn't already have a manga, they usually got a manga spin-off or like a manga adaptation. We also can take a look at pretty much a lot of the top 10s are titles that we have gotten licensed for English release and continue to get English licenses for. In fact, as I go through the top 10 Tankobon and Bunko and the top 10 of the decade list, you're going to find a lot of these titles have been licensed, and the couple that have not, well, they're certainly ones to keep an eye on over the next couple years. As I said, Kono Light Novel ga Sugoi gets its rankings by basically opening up voting to 2 separate segments. We have the fan vote, which is pretty much carried out online at this point, and then we also have what they call the insider vote. Now, in Kono Light Novel ga Sugoi every year, they actually list a breakdown of who contributed to the vote, how many thousands of votes they got, and in terms of the insiders, these are people like bookstore representatives. There's actually an author that's listed on this one. They don't list which author, but they do say that an author contributed. There are people, well, kind of like myself, I guess, you know, YouTubers, social media type personalities. There's critics. There's sort of a wide variety of people that are all associated. In fact, one of them even is an organizer of a big light novel convention. So it kind of covers the fandom in terms of people that are making a living or, you know, really kind of driving a lot of the social aspects of light novels. And then, like I said, it also reaches out to the fans and says, hey, give us your vote. And then essentially what they do is they ask people to rank. So, you know, what's your top 10 Bunko? What are your top 10 Tankobon? What are your top 10 blah, 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 blah. And so if a person gives this title their number 1 spot, it gets 10 points. If they give it number 2, it gets 9 points, 8, 7, so forth. And they go across all the lists that they have had submitted to them by the fans and the insiders, and they tabulate to go by each title and give them the points associated with the various places that they were placed on the lists by the voters. And then that is how they ultimately come up with the ranking. Obviously, whoever gets the most points gets the highest place on the list. So it's kind of I guess you could call it a democratic system. There is, I believe, a little bit more weight given to the insiders in terms of how their votes are tabulated, but that, I think, has been somewhat up for debate about whether that's actually true or not. I've seen some debate. I believe it's even changed from year to year at times. In terms of the Number of voters, that has fluctuated quite a bit over the years. I believe this previous year they had something like 4,000 or 5,000 people put in their votes. In previous years it's been as low as maybe 1,600. So it fluctuates widely. There's even a pretty good range in terms of ages. We do have everywhere from 11 years all the way up into like 50s and 60s, with the vast majority being 15 to 19, that age bracket contributing, of all of the age brackets, that one contributing the most. I think it's about 35-36% of the vote was just for that 15 to 19 age bracket, which not too shocking, as in Japan that is the age bracket that light novels are primarily marketed towards. One thing I couldn't find in any of the breakdowns of the demographics of the Kono light novel ga Sugoi this year was how many male voters compared to female voters. That may account for the fact that a lot of these titles are very male-centric, very driven towards male voters. I can't really speak for the makeups and the social backgrounds and everything else of these voters. So we know that the light novel market is substantial. We know that there are quite a number of different types of titles that appeal to different readers of different demographics and so forth. So it's kind of hard to be exactly sure just how representative of light novels in general that this list is. I do believe that a lot of it is very much driven on popularity and word of mouth and so forth. It doesn't necessarily mean even that Kono light novel ga Sugoi is a representation of what are the best light novels out currently. So you always have to take these kind of things with a grain of salt, but like I said, there is no denying what kind of influence Kono light novel ga Sugoi has on the industry as a whole. Whether we talk about English licensors, whether we talk about manga, whether we talk about anime, overall Kono light novel ga Sugoi, regardless of the questions we may have about how these lists are put together and whether they represent truly the best quality light novels or not, it really doesn't matter, because this magazine, as I said, has become such a huge marketing machine that these are really titles that if we don't currently have them in English, keep an eye, because you probably will hear them mentioned a lot more often. In this video, I'm going to be focusing on the top 10 Bunko titles as featured in Kono light novel ga Sugoi. Now, Bunko titles are the A6 paper size, which is 4.1 inches by 5.8 inches in size. If you are familiar at all with J-Novel Club's books, I'll show you that in comparison to, say, a Yen On. You can sort of see they're a bit smaller. Actually, Bunkos are smaller even than this. And to be honest, when we talk about the tankobon, they're very similar to the size of a Yen On publication. But I'll use that comparison when I do the tankobon video. But just so you know, the size comparison, even a J-Novel Club Bunkos are a little bit smaller. Now, while they're printed on, relatively durable paper, and they do feature either printed covers or slip cover design, they are still considered to be a cheaper book than a tankobon. So it's kind of a different audience that they're appealing to. The idea is that these books are smaller, so they are easy to be carried around, they are cheaper to produce, they take up less space on bookshelves, and so they are targeting really an audience that doesn't have as much of a disposable income with these titles. In fact, I've heard some tell that, in fact, actually Sam from J-Novel Club had said to us at one point that part of the rise of the tankobon format for light novels was in respect to the fact that so many people were reading web novels that the Japanese publishers were creating higher end publications so that they were more of a collectible, because Bunko aren't really seen as a collectible. They're seen as that thing that, most kids read for fun, kind of like comic books or your pulp mass market type books in the Western book market. Up until 3 years ago, there really wasn't even a need for Kono light novel ga Sugoi to divide the Bunko and tankobon formats, so they only had a single top 10 list. But realizing that these books really were being marketed and targeted to different demographics, and that the stories that they were telling, typically we would say that the Bunko are more focused on the younger demographic. So they're stories that are aimed more at that sort of lower end, that 15 to 19, even into the sort of 12 and 13-year-old bracket. Again, there's exceptions to every rule. I'm just talking generalities. But again, this is why we see these lists now divided, and that is what is featured here in this Bunkobon list. Now this year's Bunko list actually has seen significant movement. 7 of the top 10 are brand new to the list this year. They were not on the list last year. And in fact, the number 1 title from last year, Rust Eater Bisco, it's not even in the top 10 list this year. So there's a brand new number 1, and you have 70% of the list, all titles that are into the top 10 for the first time this year. So lots of movement, kind of reflects, a lot of stuff that's going on in the fandom, and constantly this influx of brand new titles. In fact, a lot of these titles have only been published since around 2018, so they are still relatively new. So I'm going to count down each title, give you a little bit of background on sort of when it started publication and everything else, and also whether we have it licensed and what the series are about, because actually there are still, like I said, a lot of these are licensed, but there are still a number that we don't have in English yet. So starting off at number 10. Now this is a new title to this list, and that is Otonari no Tenshi-sama ni itsu na aida ni ka dame ningen nin sareteru, or The Time When the Angel Beside Me Turned Me into a Useless Excuse for a Human Being. This one we do not have licensed in English. It is written by Saiki-san. The illustrator is Hazano Kazutake. It began publication in June 14th of 2019. So like when I was talking about how these titles are relatively new. There's only 1 volume currently available in Japan. Amane Fujimiya's neighbor in the apartment he lives in is the school's number 1 lovable angel. Excellent, and with a level of beauty that can only be described as angelic, Mahiro Shina Amane, an ordinary student who doesn't stand out, is her neighbor. But until now, they didn't interact with each other. After meeting the soggy angel in the rain, I'm returning what I borrowed. By the way, clean up your room. It's filthy. None of your business. A relationship with a sharp-tongued angel begins, starting with handing over an umbrella. From catching a cold and having someone take care of you, to making a meal for someone because they neglected their health, to joint work cleaning rooms. So this one sounds like very much a slice of life. Again, these, it kind of reminds me actually, I want like a bit of like Toradora, to be honest. It doesn't have that sort of setup of the whole, let's, get together so that we can each hook up with each other's friends. But in terms of that, the girl, but I guess it's the girl, the hook on this one is the girl doesn't have a public face of being sharp-tongued and so forth. So obviously a bit of a comedy. It sounds like this one could be a lot of fun. I don't foresee this one getting licensed too soon. We are seeing more and more licenses being done of titles that are newer, but they usually seem to wait until there's at least 2 volumes out. But with this one hitting in the top 10 of Kono Light Novel ga Sugoi this year, I'm pretty confident that we're going to see this series continuing at least for a couple of more volumes. At number 9, this again is a new title to the top 10 this year, and that is Natsu and No Tunnel, Sayonara no Deguchi, or The Tunnel That Leads to Summer and the Exit of Farewells. This one, the author is Mei Hachimoku. It's illustrated by Kuka. It was published July 18th of 2019, and there's only the 1 volume, and I actually think this is a standalone. I don't think this is an ongoing series. So, do you know Urashima Tunnel? If you enter the tunnel, you can get anything you want. Anything? Anything. But the Urashima Tunnel just didn't come home. Kasaki is a country town facing the sea. One morning on a summer day, Karu Tono Karu heard an urban legend called Urashima Tunnel. It was a tunnel like a bowl where you could get whatever you want instead of getting older. That night, Karu accidentally discovers a tunnel that looks like a Urashima Tunnel. He lost his beloved younger sister, Karen, 5 years ago in an accident, and came up with something in front of the tunnel. If you enter Urashima Tunnel, you may be able to get Karen back. Karu, who started verification of the tunnel loan after school, had a person who secretly followed him. Hanazona, Apricot, a transfer student, she is interested in Karu, who is floating in class. The two have a cooperative relationship to get what they want. A topical work that drew a youth of summer full of tenderness and with delicate strokes, and won the 13th Shogakukan Light Novel Grand Prize and the Judge's Special Prize. So, pardon my disjunct synopsis of this one. I did kind of have to take it from Google Translate. However, I kind of stuck with Google Translate on this one because it makes it clear about what's going on, that this is sort of an urban myth and these two kids getting together and deciding what they want to wish for and kind of, I guess, the ramifications of that. It sounds like a really good sort of like coming of age, dealing with loss, that type of story. We are seeing a lot more of these one-shots coming out in releases in English. Seven Seas in particular has picked up quite a number of them. We're seeing some from Yen On, but not as many. I find Yen On is really picking up just the one-shots that are like film adaptations and stuff like that. Seven Seas seems to be getting more into it. Even Vertical, I think, would probably be a good fit for, say, a book like this. I think this one sounds really good as well. And I'm liking that at least, we're starting off the list right away with two slice of life. Even though this one sounds like it might have some paranormal elements to it, it still sounds like it's very much a character-focused story. So kind of cool that we're seeing a little bit of that come into it. And like I said, this is the Bunko list, so even in a market that is primarily aimed at younger readers, we're seeing popularity of titles that have a little heavier themes or, are featuring more down-to-earth topics and comedy and stuff like that. So, I'm looking, well, we'll see what else is on the list. At number 8, this is again a new title, and that is Kimi no Wasure Kata wo Oshiete, or Tell Me How You Forget. The author is Mirito Amasaki with illustrations by Fly. This one began publication in September 2018. There's currently 2 volumes out in Japan. It's not been licensed officially for English release yet. I am someone who keeps going towards death, yet you keep stopping me from going. With only half of a year remaining as my estimated lifespan, I was planning to die just like that. Osamu Matsumoto, who had dropped out of college and become a NEET, and who felt that life was not worth living, was invited by his close friend Tomi to visit their old middle school. There they meet their childhood friend Shion Kiriyama, who has since become a celebrity. This meeting sets Osamu's fate in motion again. An adult youth story to give again a chance to someone who had once given up on grabbing it. So again, a slice of life. Is slice of life making a massive comeback? I wouldn't complain. But again, I like the nature of these stories. They are all kind of, the first one sounds just like a comedy, but the last one and this one, both dealing with that kind of idea of regret and trying to deal with your own emotional baggage and everything else. These sound like really good titles. I'm pleased to see stuff like this making this list. At number 7, and again, this is another new title to the top 10 Bunko list. Mama haha no tsurego wa ga moto kano data. Or, much easier for me to say, My Stepsister is My Ex-Girlfriend. The author for this one is Kyosuke Kamishiro, and it is illustrated by Takayaki. It began publication in December of 2018, and as of, I guess today, because I'm filming this on December 1st, there will be 3 volumes available in Japan. A certain boy and girl in middle school became lovers, flirted with each other, disagreed on trivial things, became more frequently irritated with each other, then excited, and ended up breaking up on graduation. And so the two of them, Irido Mizuto and Ayai Yume, wound up meeting each other in the most unexpected fashion. Isn't it obvious that I'm the elder brother? Isn't it obvious that I'm the elder sister? The children of the partner of their parents' remarriage was their ex-lover? The former couple, mindful of their parents' feelings, decided on a sibling rule, where the one takes conscious of the other as the opposite sex loses, but when they encounter each other in the bathroom, commute to and from school together, along with the memories of the past and living under the same roof, just how do they disregard each other? So this one, actually, Frog-kun over on Twitter was talking about this because she picked it up and read the first volume and, found it really quite entertaining. I don't think she quite sang the praises of it, that it was some kind of brilliant work, but it sounds like there's quite a lot in it that talks really frankly about things. Like Frog was saying that there's actually one point where the two of them kind of reveal to each other that they had considered actually taking the step to the point where they would have sex, but they never communicated it to each other, and sort of the awkwardness and everything else that ensues. It's a very much down to earth. I mean, okay, it's slightly exaggerated because how would you not know your parent was marrying the parent of your ex? But anyway, I'm sure you would have figured it out before they just happened to move in with you. But although this setup has happened in a number of other works. In fact, there's a number of shoujo manga that have had this one happen. In fact, and there's a couple of anime adaptations made of those. So it's not really a super original setup, but again, a slice of life, a bit of a life comedy type title. So starting to see a real trend here with the Kono Light Novel ga Sugoi results in the Bunko category. At number 6, and this one is new to the top 10 this year. It wasn't in the top 10 last year. I think it may have been in the top 10 in some past years. I should have gone back. I just worried about what was in the list last year. And this one is actually a title that will be familiar to many people who watch anime and follow the light novels that have been licensed, and that is the Seishun Buta Yaro series, or as we are more familiar with it, Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. This one has been licensed for English release by Yen On. Currently, Amazon lists an April 2020 release for Volume 1. Let's hope that happens. Yen has been infamously delaying a lot of their newer releases, but it'll at least come out in 2020, I'm hoping sometime. This one is written by Hajime Kamoshida and is illustrated by Keiji Mizoguchi. It began publication in April of 2014. There's currently 9 volumes available in Japan. It seems like it's been a little while since the 9th volume was published. I think it was in 2018 that was published. I'm not sure if the series is done or if the author just takes longer to write them. That part I'm not too sure about. The rare and inexplicable puberty syndrome is thought of as a myth. It is a rare disease which only affects teenagers, and its symptoms are so supernatural that hardly anyone recognizes it as a legitimate occurrence. However, high school student Sakuta Azusagawa knows from personal experience that it is very much real, and happens to be quite prevalent in his school. Mai Sakurajima is a third-year high school student who gained fame in her youth as a child actress, but recently halted her promising career for reasons unknown to the public. With an air of unapproachability, she is well known throughout the school, but none dare interact with her. That is until Sakuta sees her wandering the library in a bunny girl costume. Despite the getup, no one seems to notice her, and after confronting her, he realizes that she is another victim of puberty syndrome. As Sakuta tries to help Mai through her predicament, his actions bring him into contact with more girls afflicted with the elusive disease. So again, this one just finished a really popular anime run earlier this year. The series, like I said, has been licensed. I'm not I mean, there's obviously supernatural elements to this, that we talked a little bit about this on the podcast when it was licensed, and I think it was Mirage might have been talking about how they tried to science explain what's going on, and it would have been probably better if they had just left it magic. But nonetheless, I am looking forward to checking this one out. I saw so many people really loving the anime, but I have refrained from watching any of it because I had hopes that this was going to get licensed, so I'll be definitely checking this one out when it gets released. At number 5, and this again is a new title to the top 10 Bunko list, and that is Osana Najimi ga Zatai ni Makenai Love Comedy, or a romantic comedy where the childhood friend absolutely will not lose. This one is written by Shuichi Nimaru. It is illustrated by Ui Shigure. It began publication in June of 2019, and there's currently 2 volumes available in Japan. This one has not been licensed yet for English release. My childhood friend, Shida Kuraha, seems to have feelings for me. She lives next door and is small and cute. With an outgoing character, she's the caring Onisan type, this being one of her greatest strengths. But I already have my first love, the beautiful idol of our school and the award-winning author high school girl, Kachi Shirokusa. Thinking about it rationally, I should have no chances with her, but while walking home from school, she only talks to me, with a smile even. I might actually have a chance, don't you think? Or so I thought. But then I heard that Shirokusa already has a boyfriend, and my life took a turn for the worse. I want to die. Why is it not me? Even though she was my first love, as I was drowning in despair and depression, Kuraha whispered, "If it's that tough for you, then how about we get revenge? The best revenge ever, that is." So it's another slice of life title. We're seeing a trend, folks. Watch it now. This one, Terrence, actually, from the Light Novel Podcast, has been talking about this one back since it came out in June. I think he just kind of dug the title of it, and yes, the artwork is actually really kind of appealing and stuff, and just, yeah, I don't know, it just sounds kind of cool. I think it'll be interesting to see how the story progresses. Like, it says here that, you know, she says to help him get revenge, but I kind of think her revenge is all aiming more to get him with her as opposed to just getting him revenge. That's my take on it right now, but I don't know. I guess we will see, perhaps. At number 4, and this title actually was last year number 6, so it's moved up 2 spots, and that is Yokosu Jitsuru Yaka Shijo Shugi no Kiyoshitsue, or Classroom of the Elite. We do have this one licensed for English release by 7 Seas, so they are currently releasing it right now. Author is Shiogo Kinugasa. It's illustrated by Shunsaku Tomose. It began publication in Japan in May of 2015. Currently there are 14 volumes in Japan, and that's actually including, there's a couple of like 0.5 side story volumes in that total. The cutthroat school drama light novels that inspired an anime. Students of the prestigious Tokyo Metropolitan Advanced Nurturing High School are given remarkable freedom if they can win, barter, or save enough points to work their way up the ranks. Ayano Koji Kiyotaka has landed at the bottom in the scorned Class D, where he meets Horikita Suzune, who's determined to rise up the ladder to Class A. Can they beat the system in a school where cutthroat competition is the name of the game? This series has been uber popular. Ever since, especially since the anime came out. I do have the first volume, and I am definitely going to be reading that in the probably in the next couple weeks. Honestly, I wanna get into this series. At number 3, and this one last year was number 3, so it's maintained. And that is Choco Chara Tomozaki-kun, or bottom tier character Tomozaki. This one we do have licensed for English release by Yen On. The author is Yuki Yaku, with illustrations by Fly. This started publication in May of 2016. There's currently 9 volumes in Japan. Tomozaki is one of the best gamers in Japan, and in his opinion, the game of real life is one of the worst. No clear-cut rules for success, horribly balanced, and nothing makes sense. But then he meets a gamer who's just as good as him, and she offers to teach him a few exploits. This one, I have picked up the first volume. I'm definitely checking this one out. I've been, actually, ever since back when I was doing sort of the top 10 weekly lists, I was saying that this was a title I wanted to get licensed, and then it was announced that it was coming out from Yenon, and so I've been looking forward to checking it out. Again, a slice of life title, but I like the incorporation of the idea of gamers kind of approaching life as a game. I think that's just kind of, I think it's topical, and I think it's kind of relatable to probably to what teenagers nowadays are going through. I don't know. It's probably been a while since I've been a teenager, but still, I think it's cool that those mechanics are being introduced, and I have heard a lot of really positive word of mouth about this title, so I am definitely looking forward to checking this one out. At number 2, and last year this was also number 2, and that is Ryu no Oshigoto, or The Ryu's Work is Never Done. This one is licensed for English release by Bookwalker. They're almost caught up, actually. They've released, I think, 10 volumes of this one, and this began publication in September of 2015 in Japan, and there's only 11 volumes in Japan. So English release is almost caught up. You can only buy it from Bookwalker, and it's only digital at this point. This one is written by Shiratori Shiro, with illustrations by Shirabi. The latest series from Shiratori, the author of No Rin, a comedy about a live-in apprentice who won't take no for an answer, and the most intense shogi matches this century has seen, all supervised by Sayuki, Osaka's young professional shogi team. I open my front door, and there's a grade school girl sitting there. I'm here to be your apprentice, as you promised. Claiming the shogi world's strongest title, Ryu, at the age of 16, Yaichi Kuzuryu comes home to find Ai Hinatsuru, a 3rd grade girl, waiting for him, a 9-year-old. Come again? Apprentice? Huh? Don't you remember? He did not, but that's how the two came to share the same roof. Yaichi's spirit was on the verge of breaking, but Ai's unyielding enthusiasm reignites the fire within him. Now, I only read the first volume of this. There were some kind of uncomfortable lolly stuff in it, but for the most part, again, that wasn't like the whole book, thank goodness. But you know what, honestly, it really did have a fairly good story at its core about this boy who was being crushed under the weight of this thing that he'd actually been pursuing. I mean, he wanted it, and when he got it, the responsibility of it and the weight of it was crushing him, and seeing this young girl with nothing but enthusiasm and a near unorthodox way of viewing the game and everything else just kind of started reigniting his passion and making him realize why he loved it. And I will say the shogi battle in the first volume, and as I understand it, they get better as the series goes on, was really well written. I mean, it was like as intense as any action battle scene in a lot of other light novels. In fact, probably better than a lot of other light novels, honestly. But again, it was one of those series that I haven't continued with. But I know Frog kind of had the same feelings I did about the first volume. She, however, did go on to read more of it and said that it did get even better, and those sort of lolly things were kind of downplayed a bit, and yeah, so it sounds like it is a series that has gotten a lot of acclaim consistently. It's been number 1 on this list a number of years. In the past, only last year was it dethroned by Rust Eater Bisco. This year it stays at the number 2 spot, so hasn't dropped since last year. And like I said, I think it was number 1 for at least 2 years before that. So really popular series. Don't think the anime caused quite the buzz that the series maybe could have, but I don't know. Anybody else, have you been reading this one? What do you think? Are the later volumes, does it get better? Is it worth checking out? How does it compare to the anime? Let me know in the comments down below. At the number 1 spot, and this is a new title to the top 10, and it comes right in at number 1, and that is Nanatsu no Maken ga Shihai Suru, or 7 Magic Swords Rule. This one started September 2018. There's 4 volumes currently released in Japan. The author is Bokuto Uno, with illustrations by Ruria Miyuki. Now, this one is notable because this is actually the author of Alderamin on the Sky. So it's a known author with lots of experience with a very popular series under their belt. At least certainly a very popular series in Japan. This Alderamin will appear elsewhere when we're talking about Kono Light Novel ga Sugoi from this year. So it has placed in previous years in the Kono Light Novel ga Sugoi. So yeah, I mean, this is an author of a certain pedigree that has a name in Japan. Again, I should give shout-outs to Frog on this because I've mentioned her several times now, but she read the manga of this and said that she actually found it quite really good and engaging enough that she's bought the light novel now. So I'm going to be curious to see what her thoughts are on this one. We never got Alderamin licensed in English, and so I don't know how to feel about this title. I don't know whether this one's going to get licensed or whether it's not going to, just because of the bad luck we had with Alderamin. I don't know. Spring. In the prestigious magic school of Kimberley, this year ushers in another wave of new students. Clothed in black robes with a white cane and sword strapped to the hip, within his chest he hides pride and a mission. As the sakura flutter in full bloom, the budding magicians are welcomed by a parade of magic creatures. However, they were allowed only a moment of leisure. An underground labyrinth that swallows up students on a whim, upperclassmen that resemble monsters, and a faction that opposes human rights for demi-humans. While trying to survive in an ominous and terrifying place with his companions, Oliver forms a connection with a single girl with a Japanese sword strapped to her hip, the samurai girl Nanao. The story, where their 2 swords clash, begins now. I actually saw online some comparisons with this one with sort of a swords and sorcery Harry Potter, but then apparently Frog was saying that she'd been told that the series gets a bit darker as it progresses, and the whole Harry Potter comparisons, you can just kind of forget them. So nonetheless, it sounds like a pretty cool setup. And look back at these titles on the Bunko list. The vast majority of them are slice of life. The only really super swords and sorcery one that we have is kind of has that older school feel of the Magic High School battles thing that hasn't seemed to have quite the same level of popularity in the last just couple years. I mean, I know it's been a big thing, obviously. I mean, there's a lot of ongoing series like Asterisk War, Chivalry of a Failed Knight. There's quite a number of series that are still ongoing, but it's not been something that I think we've seen a lot of really new series come out that have had this level of popularity in the last, say, 2-3 years. I'm very curious to see if this one will get licensed. I mean, it's already got 4 volumes. It is a known author, so you know that they're going to deliver on the entire series. It's popular, obviously. I know that when, again, in looking at, researching the top 10 best-selling lists, this one was consistently placing in top 10s whenever there was a new volume. So it seems pretty primed for an English license, maybe even an anime series soon, because we sometimes, it seems that 5 volumes is kind of the magic number. It seems like a lot of anime get greenlit of light novels once the light novel series hits at least 5 volumes. There's always exceptions, obviously, but that seems to be the general way things go. So maybe look to see whether this one gets announced for an anime in the next couple of months or a year or so. In any case, that is the Bunko list. Notice something on the Bunko list. Not a single isekai title. I know some of you will be happy about that. Some of you might be ambivalent about it. But it is interesting to see that, we've either got just pure fantasy, modern world with some fantastical elements, or the vast majority of this list is slice of life. Plain and simple slice of life. So pretty cool, actually, all in all. I'm really excited about the titles on this one. And like I said, a lot of them we don't have licensed yet. They're actually really new titles. So kind of looking forward to seeing what happens with some of these titles over the next year or two. In any case, that is the top 10 Bunko list. My next video, I will be talking about the top 10 Tankobon titles. And then, like I said, after that, I'll be talking about the top 10 of the decade, and I'm sure we'll have a few things to talk about when that video comes out. In any case, that's it for this one. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.